How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Drew Johnson. We are joining you guys live immediately following Game 5 of the NBA Finals. It was ugly. It was very ugly. We knew it was going to be a tall task for the Mavs to go into Boston and extend these NBA Finals on the road, especially after they won by 38 in Game 4. So it's like not only did you have the numbers against you, trying to win in a place that's already tough to try and win at in TD Garden, but you had to factor in the fact that the Celtics got completely embarrassed in the previous game, and human nature tells you that they were going to come out with a little bit extra aggression in Game 5. But even with all that being said, we thought, maybe Luka and Kyrie can have a masterclass performance together. Kyrie Irving, he hasn't been good these entire finals, and especially in Boston. He had one good game in Dallas for Game 3, and they ended up losing anyway because Luka fouled out. It just didn't materialize. It just didn't happen for Kyrie. He just, for whatever reasons, whether it was mostly mental, I don't know. I don't know what all is going on with Kyrie, but it just didn't happen for him in these finals. And it's unfortunate because he had a real opportunity to enhance his legacy, to say, okay, well, LeBron didn't carry me to that title that one time, to all those finals appearances. And, he had a chance to really change the narrative for him. Now, he's still viewed as an all-time great. I mean, that's not going to change. But, I do think this series is kind of a stain on Kyrie's legacy as far as, like, him being the next level, the next tier type of superstar. So that's how I feel about it. Game 5, the Mavs lose 106-88. Luka, the stats don't really tell the full story with Luka in this one. He finished with 28 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, but he had 7 turnovers and he shot 2 of 9 from 3. For those keeping count at home, that is 2 of 17 from deep over the last 2 games for Luka. So not good. He looked tired. I mean, it's not an excuse, but we know he had been dealing with the knee stuff and the chest stuff that happened after game 1 or 2 of this series, I believe. I can't remember.
It was 2, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there, and he's not going to be the one to complain about it or say it played a factor, but you could just tell he ran out of gas. I mean, he did all he could do, and he ran out of gas. And what this comes down to, and I know Luka could have played better in these NBA Finals, but what this comes down to is he didn't get enough consistent help throughout these finals to give the Mavs a real chance of winning. If he hadn't fouled out in game 3, maybe this is a different story. The series is tied 2-2. Going to Boston, you don't have as much pressure trying to make NBA history and come back from 0-3. Maybe the Mavs do something if that doesn't happen. But overall, this was, as much as of the Mavs getting to the finals was a team effort, the Mavs losing in this fashion in the finals was also a team effort. It was from several different spots that were very disappointing. So, this is just one game we're talking about here with Game 5. But you look at it, 18 points in the first quarter, not going to get it done. You scored 28 in the second quarter, but you gave up 39. Not going to get it done. You held Boston to 19 points in the third quarter, but you only scored 21. Not going to get it done. And then in the fourth quarter, same thing. You scored 21. You held Boston to 20, but still, you only scored 21 points. So, I mean, you just didn't have enough offense. You got held to under 100 points in 4 out of 5 games this series, and a lot of that was just because guys could not hit shots. the Celtics played amazing defense, but the Mavs also. I'm going to be thrilled, not thrilled. That is a poor choice of words by me. Not thrilled, but I am eager to see what the final numbers were for the Mavs on uncontested threes in this series, because I can almost guarantee you it's going to be like under 25%, unless that Tim Hardaway Jr. Outburst at the end of game 4 inflated it. But just looking at game 5, PJ Washington 4 points, went 0 of 5 from 3. Derrick Jones Jr. was leading the team at halftime in scoring with 10 points. That's not going to get it done. Gafford was kind of a disaster on defense. Kyrie Irving, again, 5 of 16 overall, 3 of 9, but it's really 2 of those threes were kind of fool's gold because it happened when the game was way out of reach, in the fourth quarter or late third, early fourth. So, I mean, really, in my opinion, he went 1 of 7.
Mm-hmm.
Luka, again, 2 of 9 from 3. Kleba, 0 of 2. He was a disaster in his 13 minutes in this game. Let's see. Lively, he, after having 2 really, really good games, he was a non-factor again. And I don't think it's a coincidence that happened, with KP coming back. Even though KP was limited with his injury, KP gave Lively problems in this series. So, that was unfortunate to see. But Lively, as we've talked about, he's a rookie. He's 20 years old. He's going to be massive for this team going forward. Dante Exum was 100% from 3 in this game. The only problem is he only shot 1 of them.
Yeah.
That wasn't very good. The only guy in this game that I thought showed some I'm getting ahead of myself because I'm slightly emotional after all this happened. The only guy that showed some shame in this game was Josh Green. In 22 minutes off the bench, he hit 4 of 6 threes. He had 14 points in 22 minutes off the bench. So Josh Green, in my opinion, he showed up. He showed up with the season on the line in game 5. Everybody else, not so much. So it is what it is. I'm sure once we get past the initial disappointment of what actually happened in this particular series, we'll look back and see just what a crazy run this season was overall, because this team was 3 games over 500 at one point in early February, I believe. Yeah, less than a week before the trade deadline, this team was 3 games over 500. They went on a run, finished the season 50-32, and then just bulldozed their way through a tough Western Conference. So overall, it was a great season. It really freaking sucks that it ended the way it did. But, I mean, the Mavs lost this series on the margins. They had Luka. Luka played. He carried the load. I'll say that. He played okay in his first finals. It wasn't nearly as bad as, when LeBron played in his first finals. Luka did a lot of great things. There are definitely things he can improve on, though. But it wasn't the star power at the top, like the team's best players and how they played. That's not what determined this series. It was how the players on the margins played. And that's where Nico Harrison is going to have to roll up his sleeves and do some more work this offseason to get this team to the next level, because you got to have more consistency. You can't be relying on guys, like you can't have 2 of your starters in a must-win game and PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. combined to go 1 of 9 from 3. That can't happen. You got to, and they've had some great moments this postseason. The Mavs don't beat OKC in round 2 without PJ Washington. He was incredible in the series. But you just got to have a little more consistency. It can't be all or nothing. So that's the next step for this team, trying to find a little bit more consistency. They've got a good core in place. I'm not saying they need to blow up the roster or anything like that. You got a good thing right now. just you got to upgrade a few spots around the margin, especially off the bench. Like
Yeah.
the bench scoring is awful. You got to do something there for sure. But overall, things are looking bright for the Mavs going forward. It just really freaking sucks that they got gentlemen swept by the Celtics. And by the way, Jaylen Brown won Finals MVP, so that is hilarious to me. It was funny right before they did uh, the ceremony on TV. Jason Tatum commercial came on, and it was just like, they say that you're not him. They say that you might not even be the best player on your team. You know, a big dramatic commercial, and then comes back from commercial break, and it's like, hey, Jaylen Brown is Finals MVP. That was hilarious. But anyway, there's my extra long rant and kind of my grieving, I guess, of the season ending. But DJ, what do you think of Game 5 and this series overall?
Well, Game 5, we had a real issue with scoring from the outset. I mean, we just couldn't buy a bucket, and we knew that it was only going to be a matter of time before the Celtics popped off from three, and they popped off in a big way. And whenever they're shooting that way, I'm gonna be honest with you, it's damn near impossible to effectively defend them. It just is. When you run a 5-out and all 5 people are capable of both shooting the ball and semi putting the ball on the floor, it is damn near impossible to deal with defensively. And that, coupled with the fact that the Mavericks just allowed them to grab offensive rebound after offensive rebound. I mean, for God's sake, it was the guards that were doing all the offensive rebounding for the Celtics. Drew Holiday and Derek White dominated the glass. Absolutely dominated the glass. I'm not even looking at stats. I'm just going based off of what I saw. I could be completely wrong from a statistical standpoint, but just based off what I saw, they killed us on the glass. And it happened over and over and over again. We'd get a semi-defensive stop, and then they would get a defense or an offensive rebound, and a lot of times it would lead to another three-pointer because that's what they target anyway.
So the Celtics as a team had 51 rebounds. Drew Holiday and Derek White had a combined 19 of those. So
That's
they had about
huge.
a third. They had about a third of their rebounds. More than
And
a
how
third.
many were offensive rebounds? How many offensive rebounds did they have?
Drew Holiday had 4, and Derek White had 4, which
That's
was the most.
insane.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
is insane for guards. I mean, that's pretty good if you're a post, honestly, but that's insane for guards. So, kudos to them. And honestly, I blame this on the Milwaukee Bucks because they never should have let Drew Holiday go the way that they did. And they pretty much just served him up on a platter for the Celtics to get him. A lot of things had to go right for the Celtics to put together the squad they put together this year. And kudos to Brad Stevens. He did a really good job. But a lot of things had to go right. But the reality is, after this year, it's over with, I'm fairly certain, because that luxury tax is about to absolutely blast them. I'm pretty sure I read that somewhere the other day. So from what I gather, it was now or never for this Celtics team. And hats off to them. They took full advantage of it. Where do the Mavericks go from here? Number one, we need some sort of upgrade at the 3. I love Derrick Jones Jr., but I don't think that Derrick Jones Jr. is really what you want as your starting small forward. We need more size in that position. And like you said, we really just need more consistency. I think PJ Washington will ultimately be fine. I think a lot of these young players will ultimately be fine. I think Daniel Gafford, some people are calling for us to get rid of Gafford. I strongly disagree with that. I think Gafford will be fine as a potential backup for Lively. We all know that Lively is going to be a potential star. His ceiling is through the roof. It's like you said, we just need some upgrades. And it really needs to happen right now because you're going to have a lot of these guys coming into their prime within the next 2 to 3 years. And if we're going to be able to survive what's coming in the West, which, I mean, Oklahoma City is only going to get better. San Antonio, dare I say, is only going to get better. And whenever they actually reach the point where they're able to make the playoffs, watch out because they are going to be a huge pain to deal with. Um, Minnesota may fall off just because of their financial situation. Um, but yeah, the West is going to be hard to deal with. And so we're going to have to make some moves this offseason to ensure our dominance. Um, Otherwise, because other teams are going to get better. Unlike the Celtics, who had a relative cakewalk to the NBA Finals, the Mavericks actually play in an incredibly competitive conference, much more competitive than the Eastern Conference. And thus, we're going to have to make some moves. And it has to happen sooner rather than later.
Well, I mean, there's always a chance. And I mean, look, the Celtics are amazing. They even if the East was healthy, they still might have found themselves in the NBA Finals. But you at least want them to be battle tested a pretty good bit before they get there. That's one of the things that factored into this series, in my opinion. As good as the Celtics were, it would have been nice if they, some of the series they were in had been extended a little bit because the teams they played, their best players weren't out. So that's what I look forward to next season because, yes, the West is going to be better. But, the Mavs proved from the trade deadline through the end of the season that they can dominate the regular season. This isn't going to be the same as, last year where they started out kind of slow and then they're still hovering around the 500 mark before the trade deadline. I think the pieces are in play. Like the Mavs are going to be an outstanding regular season team. They've got the pieces to just dominate the regular season now, in my opinion. So I don't think that's going to be a worry. I think they've got to add the pieces around the margins to where they can have a little bit more offensive success against a team like the Celtics, who run 5 out. And, it's going to help. Even if the Mavs don't add any pieces to their current roster, it's going to help a lot just to have Derek Lively, going into his second season. Like, I can't believe, this has been a long, long year. So it feels weird even calling Derek Lively a rookie, going into the postseason, or as the postseason progressed. But, he's going to be going into the second year. He's going to get better at all the little things that he's already pretty good at. His consistency is going to be better. He's going to be stronger. Another full offseason in an NBA weight room with Tyson Chandler. He's going to be better in that regard. The three-point shooting that we saw a small glimpse of in Game 4 in Dallas, him being able to stretch the floor is going to be able to do the same things for the Mavs offense that Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford did for the Celtics in their offense. So, that's something that is going to be a big positive for Dallas going forward, even if they don't touch the margins of their roster. But with that being said, Nico Harrison, he's shown that he's aggressive. And I don't think, you didn't have enough to get over the hump and win it all. Therefore, you're not a complete team yet. And I think he is going to go out there and make a couple more tweaks, to try and get this team to the next level. Now look, that's just to compete with the Celtics. Now, if things break the right way in the postseason, and you get, say like the Milwaukee Bucks, for example, if Giannis is healthy, Giannis and Dame's healthy, and that team they have in Milwaukee, Chris Middleton, who seems like he's always got something going on health-wise lately, that team, to me, is a team that could give the Celtics trouble if they're completely healthy. The Philadelphia 76ers, the same way. I feel like they could give the Celtics some issues if healthy, but we know how that goes with Joel Embiid and and that team.
I think the New York Knicks may be the best.
The Knicks, that's a good example.
Especially if everyone's healthy.
That's a great example of how matchups can determine, who wins the finals or who doesn't. Because, in my opinion, if the Knicks had stayed somewhat relatively healthy and if they had beaten the Celtics and we found ourselves with a Mavs-Knicks NBA Finals, I think the Mavs end up winning the NBA Finals because they're a much better matchup. The Knicks are a much better matchup for them than the Celtics are. So that's just, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But when you see a team on the top like the Celtics, and then you have people saying, "Oh, well, if the Mavs had ran into the Denver Nuggets, it wouldn't have been the same outcome as it was against the Timberwolves," which I really don't understand because
I disagree with that highly, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean the Timberwolves beat the Nuggets in 7, and then the Mavs just cakewalked their way through that Western Conference Finals to get through the Timberwolves. I mean I don't really understand all that, but yeah, I mean the bottom line is you didn't win it all. The goal is to win it all. And so now you got to go back and try and see how you can improve further. So it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, the top priority, or one of the top priorities for the Mavs, is going to be, re-signing Derrick Jones Jr. And to do that, you're probably going to have to trade Tim Hardaway Jr. That's going to be a big thing this offseason. Like he's got to go.
Even if you don't re-sign Derrick Jones Jr., trade away Tim Hardaway. Do it.
Yeah,
and send Max Kleber with him. I don't care.
I think it's time to move on from Tim Hardaway Jr. and Maxi Kleber. And I know some people might think differently about Kleber just because he's been hurt. But I mean that's the thing with Kleber. He's kind of like he's like a lesser version of Kristaps Porzingis. He's had a few really solid moments for the Mavs. He's had some big games. He's shown his ability to protect the rim, play defense, but he's always hurt at the most inopportune times. He's always playing catch up from some injury, and he's like 32 years old now. I mean, he has no confidence in his 3-point shot. When he has a few games where nothing goes in, he has these long droughts from 3. And Tim Hardaway Jr. is the same way. The Mavs can't have guys on their team going forward if they want to, seriously compete for a title. And I'm not saying they didn't seriously compete for a title this year. They got to the NBA Finals, so
yeah.
That speaks for itself. But if they want a legit chance of getting there and beating a team like the Boston Celtics, you cannot have liabilities on your roster like that. So it's definitely time for the Mavs to move on from Tim Hardaway Jr. and Maxi Kleber and, go from there. I would have rather played Omax Prosper in this series against the Celtics than Maxi Kleber or Tim Hardaway Jr. just for the experience alone.
Or Jaden Hardy instead of
yes, Jaden Hardy and Omax Prosper over Tim Hardaway Jr. and Maxi Kleber. I would have been all for that.
But another issue with those two is not only offensively, you just never know what you're going to get, but defensively, you pretty much do know what you're going to get, and it's not good. And you can't play them and Luka on the floor at the same time. You're too slow in terms of defensive rotations, and you saw that over and over and over again as the Celtics proceeded to beat our brains out with ball reversals. We couldn't recover, and it's because we were too slow to the ball. And you would like to have no holes out there, but this isn't a perfect world. You really can only get away with having one. You can really only hide one. You definitely can't hide 2. And if you have 3 of them out there, which we have at times, we have had the Luka, Tim Hardaway, Maxi lineup out there, and it might be the worst thing I've ever seen defensively. So I don't know what kind of value we can get for those 2. I don't care if we just trade them away for, cash consideration at this point. That'd be great as far as I'm concerned. I think it would be addition by subtraction. And I know that sounds harsh, but this is the NBA.
Well, one thing, and, we'll have a lot of time. Well, I say we'll have a lot of time to discuss it, but
we're already midway through June, dude. I mean, We got to figure out who the hell we're going to draft. I mean, it's
Yeah.
the second round, but
Yeah,
Jesus.
the draft is coming up next week, and then 4 days after that is the opening of free agency. Actually, free agency opened right now for players on their incumbent team. So, like if the Mavs wanted to start discussing something with Derrick Jones Jr., they could actually do it right now, since the season is officially over. But free agency overall starts on the night of June 30th, I believe. So we got less than 2 weeks until that, and then we've got the draft coming up next week. Whew, the NBA never sleeps, DJ. It is a year-round thing now, because then after free agency, you've got summer league. Then you have a little bit of a down period, but this year is the Olympics, so that's going to be happening during that down period. And then next thing you know, it's going to be training camp, and everything's going to be ramping up again. So, but yeah, look, just looking forward to the draft. I'm not going to call it a pipe dream, but one thing I would love to see, and we've talked about it in some of our group chats that we're in, but I look at Detroit, and, they've got a lot of cap space that they're obviously not going to use on anybody. Nobody's going to Detroit. Let's be real. So they're going to have
going to Detroit, even if you aren't a basketball player. Nobody's
right.
going. Half the place is deserted. They've got wild dogs roaming the streets. It's
Nobody's willingly going to
baseball.
Detroit. Nobody's
No.
willingly going to Detroit. So they have cap space to use. Take advantage of that. Send Tim Hardaway Jr.'s expiring contract into Detroit's cap space, and try to get back what's his name that was on the Knicks. Shoot, I can't think of his name now. Hold on just a second. Detroit Pistons roster. Hold on. Quentin Grimes is who I'm talking about.
Ooh, I like him. Yeah, he can shoot it.
Yeah, Quentin Grimes. Because, see, since Detroit has so much cap space, the Mavs could send Tim Hardaway Jr.'s, let's see, his expiring salary is a little over $16 million. They could send his $16 million into their cap space and take a player like Grimes, who's only making $4 million, I think. And he's on the last year of his deal too. So, they could do something like that, and it would work financially. And, the Pistons would be using some of their cap space. The Mavs would have a net positive, getting rid of more salary, bringing in less, but you get a good shooter in Grimes.
Yeah.
That would be an ideal situation for me. And that's the kind of situations that, they need to be looking at as far as Tim Hardaway Jr. trades go. Now, Maxey, on the other hand, that's a little bit different situation, because he has like 2 or 3 more years left on his deal. I think that's right. Maybe it's just 2 now.
Put him on the block and see what people will give you. I mean, that's all I can really figure.
Yeah, he's 32, going on 33. He's got his injury issues. He only, he's a career 36% 3-point shooter. He shot under 35 this year. I don't even want to. Let me see what he shot in the playoffs. He ended shooting
probably like 15.
Believe it or not, in 12 games this postseason, Maxey shot 46% from 3, but all of that was mostly from that Clippers series, I feel like.
What did he shoot in the NBA Finals? It has to be like 12%.
Well, he didn't shoot that much in the NBA Finals, but let's see, in 5 games against this was 4 games. So in 4 games, they don't have the 5th game up yet on Basketball Reference, but in the first 4 games, he shot 25% from 3.
That's better than I thought.
So, but he didn't attempt a lot, and that's the problem, because he injured that shoulder and he just wasn't confident, and it just, he was a liability, and he became a liability on both ends of the floor, like we saw in Game 5. So, it's one of those things where it's like, Kleba is a success story because he's had a decent career since the Mavs found him. They signed him as an undrafted free agent. in 2017. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He just completed his 7th season, and he's been a good role player over those years. But the time has come where they have to move on from Kleba because he's topped out. I mean, you're not going to get anything else from him, and he's proven that he's going to be injured at the most inopportune times. He's not a guy you can count on for a long, deep playoff run. So we'll see. He's making $11 million a year. He's on the books for 2 more seasons. He's on the books for next season at $11 million. He's on the books for the 2025-26 season at $11 million. That's not, I mean, in today's NBA with the salary cap rising as much as it does, I mean, $11 million for what Maxi Kleba brings to the table isn't, atrocious. Like I think he's tradable, honestly.
Okay.
You just have to find the right taker there. I'm not sure what you can get for him, but I don't think it's like if Tim Hardaway Jr. this past year, he had a combined $35 million left over 2 years. It's a little bit different when you got Maxi for $20 million combined over 2 years. Again, that's my opinion, but we'll have to see. Again, the Mavs, they have a lot of good things going for them. Most of the roster is young. I mean, Luka, PJ, Gafford, Lively's 20. And all the previous guys before Lively, they're all 25 years old. Lively's 20 years old. Jaden Hardy, I think he's proven that he can have a spot on this team going forward. The Mavs just have to get rid of Tim Hardaway Jr. to kind of force Kidd to put Hardy into that situation full time, so he can fully, he's shown he's capable. I mean, there were times this year where we were kind of questioning if Hardy was going to be a guy, if he was going to be just a guy that comes in during garbage time and puts up stats, or if he was going to have any chance of having a significant impact. He proved during this playoff run that he can be an effective player off the bench. He was a key guy for the Mavs in that Western Conference Finals, where several of those games were decided by single digits, very close series throughout the first 4 games of it. And he had some big moments in that series. I'm not sure the Mavs beat the Timberwolves in 5 games if it wasn't for the play of Jaden Hardy. So you've got that going on for you. You've got Dante Exum, who's proven that he can have some good moments, even though he fizzled out for the first part of the postseason. He's on a veteran minimum deal. He's still on the books for 1 more season. You got Derrick Jones Jr., who's 26, I think, 26, 27. You get him re-signed. So, I mean, they've got a good core. They've got guys on this team who have proven that they can get their team to the biggest stage. You just have to improve around those margins, and you have to upgrade the two glaring weaknesses of this team is Maxi Kleba and Tim Hardaway Jr. That's the 2 spots that have to be upgraded this offseason because I have no doubts that the Mavs can get back to the NBA Finals next season. I have no doubts. I think they can do it. But to finish the job, they're going to have to upgrade those spots. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of, what routes they take to do that. But DJ, we'll finish up here in a little bit because this is just kind of depressing the more I think about how this season ended. But let's talk about getting to the biggest stage, losing, failing, and then having that eat at you, going into the off season. And there's 2, if I know Luka the way I think I do, I feel like this is just going to add more fuel to the fire because, he came into this last season in the best shape we've ever seen him in my opinion. He led the league in scoring, 33.9 points per game. He first team All-NBA for the 5th consecutive season, got snubbed for MVP, but he outlasted the guys that finished ahead of him and got to the finals. But he wasn't able to get it over the hump. And he did have some ailments. He kind of the knee thing was very unfortunate. His ankle gave him some issues. He had the chest thing in the finals. There's just a lot of stuff going on. But the bottom line is he wasn't good enough to get it done for the Mavs. And he didn't have enough help around him, I don't think. But, when he looks at it, he's going to say, hey, I wasn't good enough to get this done. So do we think that Luka is going to have an off season where it's like next season ends up being a revenge tour for him? Because we saw what happened with the Celtics team. It wasn't the very next year where they came back and did this. They lost to the Golden State Warriors, a team that had been there before and had more experience. And they beat the Celtics. The Celtics went out that next season, lost in the Eastern Conference Finals to the 8th seeded Miami Heat in 7 games. And then finally they tweaked their roster and got Drew Holiday. And
they were given Drew Holiday.
And they finally come back 2 years later and atone for their failures in 2022 and win it all. So how do you see this playing out for Luka and the Mavs? Can they have a similar – can they have a trajectory to where they can get their revenge tour next season and not have the same hiccup the following season like the Celtics did?
Well, Dalton, you asked about Luka's offseason, so I'm going to answer your question with another question. Does Luka have an offseason? Period. Does he have one? Is he going to play in the Olympics? Is he going to do all the international stuff? Because a big issue that I see with Luka right now is he's just – his body is decimated. He is beaten to hell. He needs to recover. And I know that he wants to go home and represent his country in the Olympics, but at some point you have to choose yourself in your professional career. You have to.
Well, and here's the thing, too, and our guy Kirk Henderson, he pointed this out the other day, and it was a good point. Slovenia might not even qualify for the Olympics. They still have some work to do to qualify. So, I mean, look, I love rooting for Slovenia when they, the last time they made it and during the World Cup, last year. But, man, I kind of hope they don't make it, honestly. I mean, and that's nothing against them. But for Luka's health and for Luka's sanity to a certain extent, he needs to take a break. He's got to. He's played way too much. And especially playing this late into June, I don't know, man. I think he's got to take a break.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and tell you. If Slovenia qualifies, he's playing.
I know.
I don't agree with it. You don't agree with it. Nobody involved with the Mavs agrees with it. But Luka's going to do it because Luka is Luka. We need Slovenia to not qualify because, like you said, for the first time ever, he's played all the way into the middle of June. This has never happened before. And you're going to try and stack a Olympic run on top of this. And then, right around the corner is the start of training camp.
Yeah. Well, and look, part of this, and I know the team, I know they want to, I don't want to say they're walking on eggshells because I don't think it's like that. But, I know the team officials and everything, they don't want to tell Luka that he can't play and represent his country because they know how much that means to him. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, like you're making what is Luka making now? $40-something million a year. Like you're making $40-something million a year. You weren't able to put your best foot forward in the NBA Finals because your knee was giving you issues, your ankle was giving you issues, you had the chest issue. There's just a lot of stuff going on, and it lingered throughout the entire postseason. It's like, at what point does ownership and management, Nico Harrison, all those guys, at what point do they come together and say, hey, Luka, like you got to take a break, dude. We got to have you at your best. this next season. Like we don't need you coming off of a deep run into June, going into playing national team ball, and then turning right around after that and going into the training camp. That's not good. Like, he's going to end up having a more serious injury if he keeps going at that rate. So
That's exactly what he's doing.
yeah, I do wonder at what point, like, team management gets involved and they're just like, hey, Luka, we get it, we understand, but even Dirk back in the day, there were times where he took the summer off from playing for Germany because he just, he had to get his body right. And that's what Luka's going to have to do this upcoming offseason, in my opinion. So, in order to get the best version of himself.
Well, I hope that Luka learns from Dirk's mistakes, because for a while there, Dirk was not taking summers off, and I think that largely led to the breakdown of his body. And now the guy can barely walk. And I'm glad that you mentioned Dirk, because this leads me to my next point. I'm not sure who all in this organization Luka will actually listen to. I'm not meaning that in a bad way. I'm just being factual, just based off of what I've seen. But I do know that there is one man on this planet that he will listen to, and that is Dirk Nowitzki. That is who needs to tell him the things that we are saying.
Yeah.
Because that is the only person he will listen to about this.
Well, look, even Luka's very good friend, who we have speculated about, joining the Mavs until he finally retired, Goran Dragic, with the Slovenian national team, he will be the first person to tell you that playing for the national team as extensively as he did throughout his career, it shortened his career. Like,
yep.
He'll be the first one to tell you. Like, there's actually interviews out there where he has said that. So, if, maybe Goran Dragic, who is viewed as a big brother figure to Luka as well, maybe he needs to get involved with it too, because I actually think that I think they're having some kind of retirement party or something for Dragic this summer. It's going to involve like Luka and Giannis and a lot of different guys. I think they're doing that for him this summer. So maybe he can talk to him just like, hey, Luka,
I have an idea. I have an idea. Use this retirement party as a front and actually make it an intervention for Luka. They lock the door and like, listen, pal, we need to talk.
Yeah.
And just lay it out on the line there. I mean, I'm joking, but honestly, discussions need to be had with him by whoever he will listen to.
We know the Mavs can step up, when they need to. We saw it as they were celebrating their Western Conference Finals victory when Michael Finley took the beer from Luka. Which I think that was mostly about being on camera. I don't know the exact dynamics of that, but we saw it. He walked up to Luka and took his beer. So, we've seen that they can do stuff like that when they want to, and now they're going to have to be, they're going to have to be serious about it. And Luka's going to, if Luka is serious about winning an NBA title, he needs to do it himself too, because there's no need. I understand, wanting to play for your country. I know how important that is to the people of Slovenia. I know how important it is to him. But, when it comes down to it, how much is he going to help if he's going out there with all these other ailments that slowed him down during the NBA Finals or the playoffs in general? So, Slovenia wouldn't be getting the best version of Luka if he does that. So he needs to take a break. Everybody needs to urge him to take a break, get his body right, come back next year on fire, total revenge. Because, I really think it's going to be a different dynamic for the Mavs. And I don't think it's going to be one of those things where they're, fighting to stay out of the play-in with 10 games left in the season. I think they're gonna be fine during the regular season. They've proven that they are built for massive regular season success and postseason success. They just have to improve on the margins, like I said. So let me put it this way: they need more options, just in like if PJ Washington and Derrick Jones Jr. and Dante, if those guys are all off, they need more legitimate options to throw in there that they trust to hit big shots. And we'll do some stuff here in the next week or so. Well, I say that we'll do something right before free agency because we're taking a break, a much deserved break from doing podcast stuff for the next few weeks. But sometime before free agency starts, we'll try and come on here and talk about the different options. But they just got to add more shooting,
Right.
And it can't be shooting without. It's got to be guys who can at least not be a traffic cone on defense too. It can't just be straight up shooting. You got to have guys who can get in front of people on the defensive end and they can hit 3-point shots. So I know that's easier said than done, but that's the challenge that's going to present itself to Nico Harrison this summer.
Well, let me ask you this. In years past, even after we won the title in 2011, the Mavericks have had very little success in free agency. Very little. Which is why I was saying, we need to build through the draft, build through the draft, build through the draft. And, we somewhat did that this year by bringing in Derek Lively, who very well might be a third star for us. With this most recent trip to the finals and with the assets that we have in place, do you think that there is any way that we can actually attract a star to Dallas in free agency? And if so, who even would that be?
I think so.
I know where you're about to go with this. I know it's the L word. You're about to say the L word.
Well, I know where you think I'm going to go with this. And yes, it was on my mind. I was going to say LeBron as an option there, but that wasn't my only name I was going to throw out there because, even a guy like Paul George is a free agent this summer. And, he's not a spring chicken, but I think he's 33, maybe 33, 34, but he's still really good. Like,
solid, man.
Wouldn't you have rather had Paul George as an option instead of Maxi Kleba?
That's a dumb question.
In the NBA final, it's there's a lot of different guys. LeBron's an option. There's obviously more. The reason I keep bringing up LeBron is not just because it's LeBron. It's just because there's been so much smoke and it's not like I've been manufacturing it. It's
I kind of
just
feel like
because
you're willing this. You've been willing it a little bit, and even with the LeBron.
I have been willing it. I have. I've been doing some work over time behind the scenes, but it's not like it's all on me. Shams Charania, and I keep bringing this up. Last summer, he reported, and Shams isn't going to report something that's bullshit. He's going to. It's legit when he reports it. He reported that Kyrie Irving reached out to LeBron to see, to gauge his interest on potentially joining Dallas sometime down the road. You have Brian Windhorst, who has, talked about that several times over the past year or so, that, the Mavs are a team to watch for LeBron if he ever does decide to leave the Lakers. He's got relationships with Luka, with Kyrie, with Jason Kidd, who was an assistant coach on that 2020 team that won a title. Jared Dudley on the assist, he's an assistant coach that LeBron is very tight with. Nico Harrison. There's so many different figures at every level of the organization that he's close to that it just makes sense. So that's where all the LeBron stuff keeps coming from. And I know he's 38 years old, but he is still so good, DJ. Yes. Like he is, I don't know, father time comes for everybody. And, it might be one of those situations where it slaps him in the face, like with a frying pan, and he just falls off. His production falls off immediately one year, maybe. But he takes such good care of his body, and he is still so good that I think he could go for another, 3 or 4 years if he wanted to.
As long as he doesn't get injured. That's the big thing.
Yeah, as long as he doesn't get injured. And that's another thing, too. He's at the point in his career where, well, he's kind of past that point, but he's just been so great. He stayed as the number one option. But, thinking about injury wise and like saving yourself for a long postseason run and stuff like that, you'd think that he would want to be in a situation where he isn't the main guy anymore. Like, and I know pride, I know pride plays a part in that. But if he wants a legitimate shot of winning another title and saving himself and not having to overexert himself to just make a, just to be a play-in team with the Lakers, you'd think at 38 years old, being a third star alongside Luka and Kyrie would be appealing to him, because he would essentially be able to coast a little bit in the regular season, because the Mavs have the pieces to be successful in the regular season. He wouldn't have to overexert himself. He could load manage whatever he needs to do. And then by the time you get to the postseason, guess what? You have a fresh LeBron James to go with Luka and Kyrie and the rest of the guys. So that's my long-winded pitch on why I think it would work, why I think he should consider it. Will it happen? Probably not, because we know how these pipe dream things go. But, I just really think if everybody got together and thought about it the way I am, it's like, okay, this works from all sides. The only thing is you have to live in Dallas and not Los Angeles, which I personally would like, but I know LeBron is not like me. So,
yeah, well, I know a lot of people don't like LeBron for issues outside of basketball. And, well, I mean, stuff that he's done within basketball by forming super teams and all that crap. But let's just look at things from a basketball perspective. If you look at things from a basketball perspective, LeBron James helps out any team. He does. 100%. And he would help us out. The only thing that I really worry about is how are we going to divvy up the ball? Because now you have 3 ball-dominant people in a starting lineup. We're going to have to get creative offensively. And I don't mean let's just all take turns. We can't do that. We have to have some sort of system set up to where everyone is getting to their spots and is able to contribute in the best possible way. And, what concerns me is a lot of times Dallas devolves into ISO ball. They did it in this series specifically. And we were doing that with just 2 ball-dominant players. What's it going to look like with 3 ball-dominant players? That's why I personally would rather use that kind of money on something like what you were talking about, like a 3-and-D wing player. My goal would be to potentially bring Derrick Jones Jr. off the bench and slide in a third potential star at that spot that can shoot the ball and play elite defense.
You know who would be, and I mean it's going to be controversial, and it would take probably a sign and trade to make it happen, because obviously the Mavs don't have cap space, so they'd have to do a sign and trade or something of that sort to make it happen. But a guy who would actually work and is an unrestricted free agent, exactly, and he fits the timeline age-wise and everything, Miles Bridges. Miles Bridges. And like I said, that, I mean, I get it. It's controversial. It's a PR nightmare for the people.
Okay, so Kyrie was a PR nightmare for other reasons, but so was Kyrie. I mean, we could, I know it's going to piss a lot of people off.
I'm saying talent-wise, offensively, defensively, fits the age range you want for a starter to plug into that Derrick Jones Jr. Role. He's a forward. He's a forward. He can play on both ends of the floor. I don't know. I look at that and I think that could be the guy that might work out. And obviously, what would be this isn't going to happen. I mean, we're pipe dreaming here at this point, but OG Anunoby, it would be hilarious.
There's no way.
I know there's no way. I know there's no way, but it would be hilarious if after, the Knicks pulled what they did with Jalen Brunson a few off seasons ago, if the Mavs found a way to steal OG Anunoby from the Knicks. That'd be hilarious. But he is also an unrestricted free agent. DeMar DeRozan, I don't like that. He's a defensive
Too old.
liability in my opinion. Very ball dominant, great player, but I don't think he fits on this Mavs team. Klay Thompson, what do you think about Klay Thompson? Because he's kind of over the hill. He's not what he used to be, but he's a better 3-point shooter than Tim Hardaway Jr. is, and he's a better defender than Tim Hardaway Jr. is, and he doesn't need the ball in his hands.
That's like saying I'm a better person than Adolf Hitler. Yeah, seriously.
You think he's falling off that bad, huh?
I just don't think that Tim Hardaway Jr. is worth comparing someone that's worth anything to. I think that Klay could go through a bit of a renaissance potentially. I could see how he could help us. I could also see how his tendency to get hurt could hurt us. I don't know. It depends on what he wants.
Here's an interesting stat for you. And if Klay Thompson was willing to accept a full-blown 6-man role, in 14 games for the Warriors where he came off the bench this past season, he averaged 19.8 points while shooting 42.8% on threes in those 14 games where he came off the bench. If he would be fully accepting of a 6-man role and he came to Dallas and did that, that would be amazing. He'd be an excellent fit here.
I think he's got to be realistic about what his role is going to be, and I think he's got to be realistic about what kind of money he's going to draw. I think that if it financially works for the Mavs, I think it'd be good, but I still don't think that and you even said bringing him off the bench, I don't think he's a starter quality player. We need a starter quality player, I think.
You know what's funny? James Harden's a free agent.
No.
him and Bron.
No.
Yeah, they could sign. The Mavs could sign James Harden, and then Brian Damaris could be the guy to do his introduction, his press conference interview stuff. Since he's the one that went on that big TV rant about James Harden being the problem.
Rant. If we bring in James Harden, I will go on a rant.
That was merely for comedic purposes. That's obviously not going to happen. But I mean, look, there's guys out there that I can see helping the Mavs, and then obviously, that's just free agency. That's like the cream of the crop so far in this upcoming free agency thing. But also there's trades that can be considered for different teams that I really have to look into, because look, I'm normally on my game with hypothetical trades and stuff, but that's one of the things about your team playing into mid to late June is you just don't think about it a lot. And now it's over, the season's over, and it's like, man, I got to look and see what trade possibilities are available. So, I'm going to jump into that, and, y'all keep up with our work on DallasBasketball.com. DJ, he's got a great piece on Derek Lively and, the promise he's kept to his late mother, Kathy Drysdale. Y'all need to go check that out. We've got extensive post-game coverage, following that game 5. It was horrible, but I've got a recap up on that. Our guy Lance Roberson, he's got a piece on Kyrie, not rising to the moment. We got a lot of other stuff coming too, and it's not, it might seem like it's all doom and gloom right now, but it'll get better. I mean, like I said, it was a good season for the Mavs, great season for the Mavs, especially when considering where they were, 5 months ago, 4 or 5 months ago. It's kind of incredible that they, Nico Harrison pushed the buttons that he did, and this team made it all the way to the finals for the first time in 13 years. But now they've made it this far. They've failed. They've gotten a taste of what it takes to get here and finish it. And now they got to go back to the drawing board, look themselves in the mirrors, add around the margins, and come back even hungrier next season, because that's exactly what this Celtics team did. And now they're on top of the basketball world, and they've won their 18th championship in franchise history. First time since 2008 when they had Paul Pierce, KG, and Ray Allen, and Rondo, that guy. Uh, so, it's been a great season, y'all. I mean, we've thoroughly enjoyed covering all of these playoff games. We normally come on here and just do like one episode a week, but me and DJ were just like, you know what, we're gonna buckle down. We're gonna do every single playoff game, and it's been tiring because we obviously have a lot of other stuff going on aside from talking about basketball on a podcast. But it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a great season, and it's not over. The NBA never rests. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Like I said, we're going to take a much needed, I think, well-deserved break. So it's going to be a little bit until we're back on here, but we thoroughly appreciate all of you guys coming in here and listening to us, and following along with the Mavs on this fun ride we had this season. And we can't wait for next year because, like I said, things are looking bright for the Mavs. Luka's just now entering his prime. They have a good young core with him, and I'm very excited to see where they go, putting the finishing pieces on this roster as we go into next season. But DJ, anything else you want to add before we take off here?
Make no mistake, this was a missed opportunity for the Mavs, but it's a failure you can build off of. And what really defines you as a player, as a team, as an organization is not your failures, but how you respond to said failures. And if the Mavs respond correctly, which up till now they have only responded correctly, we'll be right back here next year.
Yeah, I fully believe it. I mean, it was very apparent in these finals that experience played a big factor. I know the Mavs lacked shooting, but experience played a huge factor. The lights were just simply a little too bright for some of these guys being on that stage for the first time in their career, just like it was for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and the rest of those guys that were on that 2022 Celtics team. The lights were too bright for them, and the Warriors had been there before. So that's what I'm kind of hanging my hat on to end this season out is the Mavs got there. They're obviously talented enough to do it again, but now they'll have more experience under their belt, and they'll know, what they'll need to do differently next time, because this is a game. People talk about football being a game of inches and stuff like that. Basketball is a game of inches, or a game of very small margins. And yeah, I mean, you look back at certain moments in this series, if Luka doesn't take some of those cheap fouls early in the game of game 3 and doesn't foul out at the end of game 3, this could be a very different series. We could have been tied 2-2 going into this game 5 tonight and probably still would have lost because they just couldn't win in Boston. But then it's 3-2 going back to Dallas for a game 6, and you have a chance to force a game 7. So, it's little stuff like that I'm sure they'll look back on. Luka, he has some stuff he still has to improve on. Kyrie has some more soul searching to do after this series because it was just, it was rough for him. But I think everybody will take a much deserved break, have a great off season, and come back to training camp hungrier than ever, because this is going to hurt. This is going to sting for them. And, even though they overachieved in many people's eyes, they thought they were good enough to win it all, and they failed. So, I think they'll all kind of go back to the drawing board and come back with a lot more hunger, just more hunger to get back and finish the job. And we'll see if they can do that next season. But guys, we appreciate y'all coming in and listening to us ramble for over an hour now. Be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. Hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel. It's been a crazy season. It started last summer. We really started building that channel, and we eclipsed the 25,000 subscriber mark throughout this postseason, which is just unbelievable to me, considering where it was at last summer. So Really appreciate y'all. Be sure to go leave us a review on Apple Podcasts as well to enter your chance to win future giveaways, whether it's t-shirts, tickets, stuff of that nature. Go do that and put your social media at, and then you'll have your name in the hat for the next time we have a giveaway. Guys, we appreciate it. It's been a great season. It didn't end the way we wanted it to, but, I think some good things are ahead for the Mavs, and we can't wait to continue covering it for you every step of the way. We'll see y'all.
Thanks, guys.